There are several versions of the Sorcerer King's story, some co-opted by the church into their doctrine, some told by pagans in far-off lands, but they all agree on three main points: the golden rod, the loyal servant, and the maiden in green. Azerak entertained nobles and pontiffs and demons alike, and many monstrosities did he craft from flesh, both willing and not. But rarely did he participate in the orgies himself. He left the day-to-day affairs to his major domo and most trusted servant, while he, Azerak, watched the proceedings from a distance, increasingly insatiated to the pleasures of the flesh. Then one day, a maiden in green caught his jaded eye, a high priestess of Aset, also known as Isis, goddess of love, fertility, healing magic, and life. So smitten by her was Azerak that he took her for himself, letting no other touch her, much to the silent chagrin of his guests, and he bound her to him with magic chains of obedience, holding her will in a phylactery of that dearest to her. Only his most loyal servant, the major domo, would he allow near her without his presence, and the major domo would prepare her for Azerak, as bidden, and Azerak would take her as he pleased, but no pleasure would she return. For one cannot force love on the high priestess of the goddess of love. Now, some stories say that Azerak had simply grown old. Some say he was rotting, but not dead, merely unliving. Others say his sorcery had taken its toll and changed him to something unhuman. Whatever the case, there came a time when even the green-clad maiden could no longer appease his lust, nor would she bear him a son as he wished. For one cannot force a child on the high priestess of the goddess of fertility. So he commanded her to share her magic arts with him, and he with her, and together they crafted a wondrous item, a golden rod which would serve as his fleshly scepter. Through it he would experience the pleasures of the flesh again, even though it would not be attached to him. And as his earthly body failed him further, he instructed his loyal servant in the proper manipulation of the golden rod, while he watched and was engulfed in pleasure. Now here is where the story diverges. Some say the maiden seduced the loyal servant out of guile for her own ends. Some say out of love, for his was the only kindness and gentleness she had known in the Underdome. Some say they were both victims of Azerak's true machinations. In any case, the servant began to meet the maiden in secret without the golden rod, and a child was born from their union. But the servant learned of his master's intent, that through foul sorcery Azerak would be reborn as his own son, given life anew, possessing the child's body on its first year, or its christening, depending on the teller of the tale. But the evil ritual did not call for the child to be of Azerak's seed, only that it be born of his wife, and thus she become his mother upon possession. The servant told the maiden this, and she ended Azerak's plan. Here's a picture of a donkey having sex, because donkey sex is never not funny. And so we come to the last and worst part of the story. In a rage, Azerak had the lovers seized and pronounced punishment upon them. The maiden begged for mercy, but the servant, knowing his master, despaired. The servant would be dismembered slowly, limb from limb, and the maiden in green would watch. This he set forth to do immediately. Then she, on the morrow, would be tossed into the flesh pits, where dozens of eager guests and hundreds of jealous slaves would have their chance at Azerak's bride. But also that they would be forbidden to use any member but the golden rod, and he would watch and be pleasured until she died. But one does not threaten to take the life of the high priestess of the goddess of life, especially when one has taught her of the dark arts as well. And so she prayed to powers both light and dark, sacred and profane, and she used her healing magic on the servant in ways her goddess never intended. And she cleansed the Underdome with the curse of both life and death, and she used her magical bonds with Azerak to ensure that he too was bound to remain here forever, to watch, but feel no pleasure ever again. Now fap to that, you sicko. Space Jesus condemns you.